15, and I can't believe it. It's really going fast. Today's topic is a little dark, and it's something that I was doing to myself this weekend. And when I woke up and opened the book, I was like, Julie, you need this reading. I need it for myself. Okay, so it's a little heavy, but hey, it's Monday. So we have a whole week to work it out, okay? I'm not sending you into the weekend hopeless. I'm helping you think about ways to make the coming week a great week. All right? Everybody ready? This is kind of a long one. So I'm going to read, then we'll talk. All right. Today's reading from A Gracious Space Fall, Day 15, Prophecies of Doom. We've all made them. Those pronouncements that let our children know that the perilous choice they make today will land them in a low-paying ditch of a job, eking out a half-life, regretting that they didn't master the proof for right angles on the third Thursday of September. The slow descent to adult failure begins when the precious cherub who suckled at your breast defies your plan for his life. You see him happily writing poems instead of completing math tests. Yes, that would be my son, Noah. And declare, how will you get into college if you never advance in math? He plays around with sign language, studies Klingon, never takes chemistry. Dire predictions follow. You must complete high school. You can't expect colleges to make exceptions for you. Without a college degree, you won't earn enough money to live. Except that colleges do make exceptions. And they make them for your son, who they told to put Klingon on his transcript for his foreign language requirement. And apparently, the linguistics department doesn't care whether or not he took chemistry in high school. You proclaim to your daughter that she must study U.S. history because no college will accept her without it on her transcript. She never musters the interest. U.S. history study lags and flags and sputters. When it's time to apply for college, she does a 6-week crash course and is accepted into the scholars program at the university of her choice. You declare that no one can live on minimum wage, and then your adult child does somehow, maybe not to the standard of living you'd want for him, but he makes it work because it's his life, and this is what he wants for now. We tell our kids they will get lost if they don't print directions. We tell them they will lose all their teeth if they don't brush them. We warn that if they don't sleep 8 hours a night, they won't be able to think straight the next day. We predict that no girl will ever kiss our son if he doesn't learn to shower. We declare that online friends aren't real friends, and so our child is friendless. We make sweeping statements out of fear and love. I know. We all do it. Last night, a mother I spoke with told me that her 9-year-old son had just begun to lie to her for the first time in their precious, intimate, close, self-aware relationship. It stunned her. She launched into a parental, never lie to me, prophecy of doom. How can you lie to me? We will never have trust again if you don't tell me the truth. You are ruining our relationship. But that's not what's happening. A 9-year-old boy is avoiding something. He has figured out that if he tells half the truth, he may only have to do half the work. It's not likely he intends to destroy the parent-child bond, but we frame it that way. We get big and dramatic and huge and sometimes even loud and lectury, and oh, how we love to go for length in those moments. Parents aren't stupid. They have made so many mistakes in their 35 to 50 years on the planet. They only want one thing, for their children to not make any. Parents can see further down the timeline. Sometimes that's an enormous advantage. Kids do well to heed parental vision, but not every time, and not about everything. Not all the choices your kids make today need to match the ones you would have them make. In fact, I'll go further. Our biggest job isn't to prophesy doom or to spell out impending disaster or to nudge, nag, and coerce cooperation with our vision for their lives, or even what we are convinced is their vision for their lives. Our job is to be pointers. It's better to say stuff like, you don't want to take more math? I wonder if the University of Cincinnati will accept you into their program if you were to apply without it. Let's call to find out. What if you don't call and don't take the math? How would you feel if they didn't accept you because you didn't take pre-calculus? Would you take it then? Where would you do that? We need to help our kids think about their choices they are making, not tell them the outcome of the choices before they've made them. We can point our children in the right direction, suggesting they find out what they don't know and, honestly, what we may not know either. When Noah stuffed his transcript into the application envelope for college, he said the following: "I'm going to be so mad at myself if not taking chemistry keeps me out of college." That's what you want to hear. Noah knew it was his choice, one he made with full information, that most kids need chemistry in high school to qualify for college. And wouldn't you know, his wager won. He was accepted to the linguistics program without chemistry. The main reason you don't want to prophesy doom is because you really don't know how things will turn out. You really don't. But you do have valid concerns and some perspective and a slew of ideas about how to make a satisfying life. Your best bet is to engage in conversation, point out things to consider, and even to prophesy a little hope. I would hate to study chemistry too. In fact, I never did. We didn't have to take that class in high school when I was your age. I wonder if there's a way to get around it. I wonder if it is required, if there's a way to do it so it's less annoying. But I know you're smart. You'll get to where you want to go eventually, and I want to help you get there. Shall we do a little research before we abandon the traditional path, just to be sure? Resist the temptation to prophesy doom. Establish the habit of research and considering all options. Give support, faith, and love. Then see what happens. Quote of the day. What a wonderful piece. It made me laugh and it made me think. Thank you. It hit me right in my heart and I listened. I prophesy doom. If you don't do this today, then XYZ will happen in your future. Food for thought. Sybil Botran. Today's sustaining thought. Doom and gloom, or discuss and discover? What works best in your family? Oh, it's a long one, right? So someone's asking right away, how do I get my almost 9-year-old to do his schoolwork? I tend to prophesy doom. Well, first I'd ask you, is that working? Because typically what parents do is they spew their own neuroses onto their children. And really what's going on isn't that the child isn't learning and growing, it's that you will feel like you're failing as a home educator if you don't see evidence that the child is doing the schedule the way that you wanted it done. I just posted an Instagram photo yesterday and I shared it to Facebook. I was doing the horrible work of cleaning my house out. I'm trying to unchild my house. I'm trying to take the adult children who've left and all their stuff out of the bedrooms and recreate it into a peaceful space for sleeping and living. And while I was digging through my things, I found an old, here it is, lesson planner from back in 1997 and 98. And it was the lesson plan I made for Noah. I had one for Johannah too. And each block had highlighters and stickers and love notes from me. I mean, this was a tenderly prepared, very fun schedule. All the activities, if you read them, many of them are very fun. And after several weeks of this, Noah woke up one morning and said, I hate my life. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to continue to require him to do school work and prophesy doom and say, if you don't do your schoolwork, you're never going to get into college, you'll never be a successful adult? Or was I going to reevaluate what produced the light of imagination and curiosity in him? And I had to rethink everything. And that is the subject of all my videos, all my writing, all the work I do on Facebook Live. And here's what I want to say in a very short, succinct statement. We need to pay more attention to what goes right. And if our children are resisting what we call schoolwork, we need to reimagine that schoolwork. I'm not talking about giving up on all the ideas that you had about math or spelling or reading. I'm not saying that, because I know that when someone says jump into unschooling and do nothing that is preparatory or curriculum driven, that feels like not only too big of a step, but not even real, not even congruent to how you live. And I've jumped into those deep waters on your behalf. I've taken that risk and I've backed away. I both love the natural learning promoted by unschooling, and I also loathe it. And that might even be too strong a word, but let me explain what I mean by that. Here's what I mean. What I found hamstringing about abandoning schoolwork is this, or the traditional models or curriculum. Unless someone gives me a vision, I don't know what to do. So we all become nomads wandering the house, and I became a lying, anxious worrywart. And when I say lying, this is what I mean. I pretended to be okay with things that I really wasn't okay with yet. I hadn't grown enough in the vision of natural brain-based learning to fully embrace it at the point that I sort of cried uncle and decided to embrace it. Have you ever done that? You're like, okay, well, I'll just trust unschooling for technology. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, why is he on the computer? Why is she watching TV? Have you done this? And so then here's what happens. You allow yourself to build up all this resentment, and then all of the sudden, when it doesn't magically transform into them reading the whole Jane Austen canon on their own, you freak out and you prophesy doom. You say something like, technology is going to ruin your brain, you can't watch it, and there's nothing good, and I found all these articles, and they disagree with everybody else, and now I know you shouldn't be on the computer, right? This is what we do. So take the labels off. Take the label off. Don't use the word unschooling. Don't use traditional schooling. Don't do even the schoolwork word. And think about learning. Think about what's being learned. What's being learned if we require our kids to do what they hate? What's being learned if you shame your child into follow through? What's actually being learned? Math? No. What they're learning is my relationship with my mom is contingent on whether or not I perform for her. I didn't want that message. I didn't want that relationship. If we take the 29 years that Noah has been on this planet, I can tell you one thing that I know for sure. He is the same person today that he was at age 2. Literally. And at age 5. And 10. And 15. And 25. And even last year, 28. Which, you know what that means? It means deep, passionate engagement, and then total detachment, and then deep, passionate engagement, and then his eyes go somewhere else and he does something else. And difficult challenge with structure, not his thing. He would tell you that today. But what has he done in 29 years? Well, he's worked a whole bunch of jobs. He's gone to college 3 times. He's on his 3rd try. And he's doing it. He's doing it online. Because in the meantime, somewhere along the way, he taught himself computer programming, and he got his first job this year. He's 29. Do you know how many years that is after high school? That's 10. It's 11, actually. 11 years of trying to figure it out, of starting and stopping college, of working low-paying, minimum wage jobs, of sorting out what he needed in order to get where he wanted to go. And all the while, it would do no good for me to tell him, oh my gosh, you're blowing your life. How is that helpful ever to anyone? And yet here's what happens. If you can find that groove where you can support who that child is and have honest conversations like, gosh, you're on the computer a lot, and I keep feeling like I'm going to be really upset. And I don't want to be upset because I can tell you love it and I can tell you're learning things. But I have this neuroses over here going on. I keep thinking, don't we need to do history? Don't we need to do science? And I don't know what that looks like in a natural learning context. All I know is the textbook version. I'm really not good at ginning up biology spontaneously. How are we going to address that? Can we talk about this? Or, gosh, you're on the computer a lot, gaming. Tell me about it. What do you think is good about it? Are you enjoying it? Do you want to know something? Not everyone who's on the computer all the time is enjoying it. Sometimes something else is going on. Sometimes they're hiding on the computer from a feeling of hormonal change or a lack of interesting stuff besides computers. For kids who are on constantly and really hate homeschool, there may be a missing ingredient, a third place, a place that animates and excites. Could it be indoor rock climbing? Could it be nature hikes? Could it be ballet lessons? I know for Katrin, she got to a place where her life shrunk down too small at home. I was going through the most significant, painful transition of my life, and I momentarily lost track of her. Have you ever done that? You're coexisting with your child, you're putting out the work, or you're doing the read aloud, and you're in this autopilot mode. And your child doesn't have anything interesting except fulfilling your requirements, except she's not going through the hardest time in her life. She's just living, waiting for the mother to show back up. And when I showed back up, I suddenly saw her life had shrunken to this tiny space, and she wasn't happy. So we had to fix that. And one of the first things we did is we sat down and I said, Katrin, if you could be doing whatever you wanted right now, what would it be? And she got tears in her eyes and she said, I would learn to play piano and take singing lessons. So do you know what we did? I signed her up for both. I didn't have the money. I just knew it was the right thing to do. And so I invented another product or something, which is what I typically have to do to pay for the things my children needed, because I wanted them to have what they needed to thrive. You see what I'm saying? It would be so easy to tell her to be curious, to tell her to solve that blank space that was happening in her life. I often say parents can provide 3 things to their children: driving, money, and interest. That's it. That's your job. Drive them around, pay for their stuff, and show interest. Get involved in what they're doing. Haley says sometimes it's the opposite. So busy running around doing all their stuff and not spending just time being. Oh, I've had those moments. I mean, with 5 kids who want to play sports, want to be in acting, want to go and do an indoor rock climbing gym or ballet, absolutely. And you have to, at some point, sort of figure out, okay, how do we manage all these children and all their interests? I know for us, we could only do 1 or 2 children in sports per season. My husband at the time worked on Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings. So, hello, I was stuck. It was just me driving kids around and going to their games. I hated missing games, and they would all invariably be in conflict. So yeah, you have to make decisions like that. Those are practical ones. But you can reimagine the home as well. You can reimagine what creates excitement. One of the things Katrin did that year, in addition to these lessons, is she started a fashion blog. And every day, for 365 days, she compiled a completely different outfit and took a picture on her front step and wrote about it on a fashion blog. That could all happen at the house. But you know what that meant? Spending time reading fashion blogs. A lot during the day, checking out what other people were doing, learning about fashion. I famously posted photos back in the day, back when I was homeschooling and blogging was just getting going, of one of our spelling lists. It all came from Vogue, Elle, every one of those fashion magazines that I don't know, W. We just went through and we called all these words that she was wanting to use in her blog that were really, really hard to spell. And she loved more traditional schoolwork than my other kids. She thought that was fun, probably because I never required it of her. So she sort of got a kick out of it when we did it. So we made this big list of all these words like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember because I'm not in the fashion world, but it was, Project Runway was new too. So we were learning things like chiffon and certain tailoring cuts, and oh my goodness, it was crazy. And so we had this big long list so that she could master them, so she could use them in her writing. So that's what I'm talking about, reimagining what life feels like to your child and making sure that you don't leverage your agenda through prophesying doom. You get it? Don't leverage your agenda by prophesying doom. Partner with your kids. Get to know them. Get to know what they need. And then think about strategies to bring that into being. And sometimes you have to wait. You don't yet have the circumstances or the money. Maybe you're 8 months pregnant and you can't just suddenly start driving to all these things, but you can cast a vision for when it's going to be possible. So they have hope. They have something to look forward to. You can say, you know, the baby is coming and we can't start now. It's only October or September, but we'll try in March, okay? We're going to do it in March. In the meantime, let's check out CDs. Let's get a DVD that teaches dancing. Let's start every day watching YouTube video of musical theater. Give them a piece of what they want, even when you can't give them all of what they want. One of the greatest tips I ever got in homeschooling, it was from a book I read years ago, and I can't remember which book. Wish I could, because it was really good. But here was the gist of the insight I took from this book. If you can't give them what they want, give it to them in a wish. So if your child says, I want to be a Broadway star, you can start with, oh, that would be awesome. What would it be like to be a Broadway star? Well, I would get to wear all of those different colorful paints on my face like they do in Cats and in Wicked, and they start listing all their favorite musicals, and suddenly you realize they're interested in face painting. Well, I can supply that. So then you say, oh, you know what? Wouldn't it be fun to do our faces like one of the cats from Cats? Let's look up face paint. And so you get the face paint and you actually design a face with face paint. How about starting there? Instead of saying, oh, that's ridiculous, we're never going to be Broadway stars. I mean, a lot of us do that. Or we might say, well, you know, if you could sing. I mean, that's not the point of that comment, right? Right now, all these kids obsessed with Hamilton, they're all interested in poetry, in rap, and in U.S. history. Take advantage. They might say, oh, I want to write a musical. Well, why? Find out. What is the fascination? What is it? Get in there and give them a piece of it. Wish for it. Imagine it big. If they say something that is outrageous, like, I wish I had jet boots and could fly over our neighborhood. Well, maybe you can't do that, and maybe there's no piece of that you can give them, but you can sure go into the fantasy. Well, how would you get the boots? Who would make them? Where would you go? What would you see? Start jotting that down, and suddenly you've got an entire imagined autobiographical fantasy. And you can do that for your kids. I think we are entirely too realistic, too worried about our responsibility, and we completely miss the opportunities our children are handing us on a silver platter. When a child says, I hate this, that's the beginning of new life. That's not the end, that's the beginning. That's a child self-aware enough to tell you the truth. You can always work with the truth, always. I have a child, 7.5 years, that is a little fearful of new things. When I find an activity that I think he'll love, he gets nervous to go at it at first. Do I insist he try it a few times, or just take his hesitation and allow him not to go? When I've insisted in the past by telling him to give it a try, he ends up loving it. I feel bad at first, though. Well, I think you've answered your own question. So maybe one way to address that is this. I have an idea for us. Have you noticed how when I have an idea, usually you think you're going to hate it, and then we do it and you love it? So I think I'm going to have us try again, because experience tells me it's going to be okay. What is the favorite snack that I can bring for you? Like that. Tell the truth, soften it, give him something that he can hold on to for his security, and then go do it. Now, occasionally, you have a child who really doesn't want to do something. And you should know the difference between, oh, I just want to sit here in this chair. You should know that difference from terror or really major discomfort. All of us sometimes need to be reminded that it's going to be fun to get in the boat and go on the water. We do, because we're in our, curmudgeon, stuck in the mud kind of routine, and it's good to kind of snap us out of it. But there are times where your child really means it. And let me give you an example. All those piano and voice lessons that I gave to Katrin, she never let me see her perform at the recitals. In fact, she didn't even do the piano recital. And for the voice recital, she banned the family from coming. I've never seen her perform singing, except in a choir. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? My child, who sings all over my house at all times, didn't let me see her sing in performance, because there was something about that context that was really, really unnerving to her, and I just knew to honor it. I knew to honor it. I'd actually made the mistake of sneaking in once to something else she told me not to go to. She found out, and to this day has not forgiven me. So I learned. And that's one of the things that you also have to be aware of. You're not going to do it perfectly. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. Not each of your kids needs the same parent. And that's frustrating, because what worked really well for one might not work for the other. Remember this thing, the notebook, the schedule? Johannah loved it. Johannah, the second child, loved it. Loved the little stickers, loved my love notes, wanted it all broken out, thought it was really fun to read Monday and math and know exactly how they lined up. Oh, it worked beautifully for her. So we kept going. I kept making those for her. But we couldn't do that for Noah anymore. You can't do that for a kid who hates his life. He should love his life. Everyone has the right to love their lives. Everyone, including you, including your husband or your wife, including your children. Everyone. If someone is hating their life, something has to change. Bottom line. It's not that they have a strong will. That's a whole different thing. And plus, what's a strong will? That language drives me crazy. A strong will just means I want to do something different than what you want to do. And I'm so committed to not doing what you want me to do, now you're mad at me. I mean, that's what a strong will is. When I live alone, do I have a strong will? There's nothing to react to. I don't have a strong will. There's nobody coercing me. I get to decide when I have breakfast, whether or not I'm going to do my work, whether I'll show up on time on Monday at 8 a.m. to talk to all of you. Is it a strong will if I decide not to do that? It just means I didn't want to do it. So a strong will just means the person wants to do something different than what you want them to do. That's all it is. And they are tenacious about it. Well, for me, drop the language of will and just start noticing human beings. This person wants to do this. I want us to do this. And those are in conflict. How do we problem solve? That's your job. Someone says she calls her strong-willed child a free spirit. All of us are free spirits if we are given space to be who we are. All of us. All of us. Even the ones who like following the routine. Because feeling free is what creates life and nurture in anyone's life. Freedom. Freedom. That's the goal of everyone's life, to experience a sense of liberation from the weight of responsibility and the crushing expectations of other people. And all of us live in between the tension of throwing off those shackles and then willingly re-entering them on some kind of terms that we make, that we create. I mean, that's how it is at jobs. You know, first you're like, woohoo, I get to do whatever I want. And then it's like, oh no, really, I can't. But I can negotiate the terms here. I will show up in the mornings and I'll work from, even McDonald's. You know, even McDonald's. When I worked for McDonald's, when I was in college, I had some say over my shifts. It wasn't like they could come to my house and, coerce me to show up from noon to 5. Because if I didn't want the noon to 5 shift, I could quit. So there is a certain level where we have the opportunity to shape our lives, even as adults. And we should give our children the opportunity to experience what that feels like, to create, to take a risk, to not do math for a couple months and see if that's okay for them. I remember with Johannah when I first was sick, we were just every day, I was dragging her in to do math. And one day I just said, you know what? This was in junior high when, things start to change. I said, you know what? I'm just not going to be in charge of math anymore. So you don't have to do it. If you decide math is something you value, let me know. I literally walked away from it. She was so happy. She was like, woohoo, no math. But see, I know Johannah. And that didn't last. 3 days later, she's got the book back out. She's doing math. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I figure I need this for high school. I said, oh, okay. She's like, and you're not checking up on me. I said, right. I'm just done. I'm done arguing about it. I'm done. And she told me years later that she had been counting on me to drag her to the table for math so that she could be angry at someone about it. And when I just dropped the rope, I don't care, do math, don't do math, she couldn't even stand that for 3 days. Like in her case, she goes, and then I started doing more math than I had ever done, and then I started actually getting interested in it. Now, do not hear me say that this is the magical trick for getting a child to do math, because with Noah, dropping the rope meant, yay, he's done with high school at 16 and never looked back and didn't finish. So you have different kids, and they're going to react different ways. And I wasn't doing it as a trick. I really was done forcing a child to do math and having a fight about it. That seemed illogical to me. And what followed in her life was awesome. She began to really take charge. The next thing I know, she's in Latin classes, she's in logic, she's writing a novella, she's working on vintage dance. Like suddenly this flowering of ownership really blossomed. So everybody's different. And don't assume that you know that what worked for me or worked for one friend of yours is going to work in your family. The dynamics are different. And you have 2 parents and multiple children to consider. The bottom line is this. You will have your own stories to tell at the end of it. And it will end. And they won't all finish all the things you hoped they would finish. And not all of them are going to wind up doing the things you imagined and dreamed of from the day you held them in your arms. Some of them will go to college. Some of them won't. Some of them will learn on their own. Some of them won't. You will have regrets. There will be things you did not do. You'll look back and wish you had heard of X program and somehow had never heard of it. This happens to all of us. So in the meantime, let's prophesy hope, optimism, problem solving. What did I say here? Let's read the sustaining thought again. I think it's important because this is a tough topic. Resist the temptation to prophesy doom. Establish the habit of research and considering all options. Give support, faith, and love. Then see what happens. See what happens. There's nothing you can't fix. My goodness. I have a niece right now who has a baby, and she didn't plan to have this baby. And she is brainstorming all the options about college and work and what to do next. And you know what? It's all good. He's the cutest little baby ever. The whole family's in love with him. And there are so many ways to get college. This is how it works. Everybody's got stuff. She didn't plan to have her baby at 22. She was going to wait. Now she's got a baby. She's going to do something different. That's how it is for everyone. That's how it is for everyone. My gosh, how many people do you know who've gotten their degrees in their 30s? Lots of people. So try not to hold on to this American dream vision that says college has to start at 18 and they better have read the entire canon of Western literature before then. Not possible. Not even advisable. Save some of the good stuff for their 30s when they're mature enough to really appreciate it like you're appreciating it right now. Okay? Yes, it can apply to every aspect of life. I'm looking at my watch because I have a staff meeting ready to start. So I am going to sign off. If you don't have my book yet, A Gracious Space for Fall, go to Amazon and buy it. Thank you for all the lovely reviews you're leaving there. That helps get the word out, and I'm all about getting the word out. Don't you think homeschool needs this? We need these conversations. We need them in our communities. We need it in our friendships. And I had a really amazing community of friends to work this stuff out in. And I highly recommend going out for coffee, meeting with your posse, having a group meet in your home. Cindy Clark, who many of you know, she's our customer service person, our operations administrator, all around amazing Excel spreadsheet person, like all the things I'm bad at. She used to meet in my home. We had this big Charlotte Mason meeting. And we did it every month for, a year or two. And all these women would come, and we didn't know what we were doing. And we would just talk about Charlotte Mason. And we would try to implement, and we would have conversations. It was awesome. You need to do that stuff. Find your group. find your tribe, have these conversations, and help each other not to be hard on your kids. Do not take out your anxiety and frustrations on your children. Don't download your frustrations on your children's heads. That's what I say all the time. Just reject it. Don't download your frustrations. Write them out, process them with your friends, talk about them with your spouse. Come to me, join the Homeschool Alliance, get on Facebook and Instagram. Problem solve. Do not prophesy doom. Okay, I love you. I know you can do it. Mwah. Live honestly. Write bravely. Prophesy optimistically. I'm Julie Bogart from Brave Writer. I'll see you again right here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.